Hey, welcome to My Kind of Place, a series where I take a look at some of my favourite areas, levels and parts from video games. To kick this series off, I decided to start with the area that helped inspire it, and my general love for this kind of stuff. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines' first hub, Santa Monica. Santa Monica is the first of 4 distinct hub areas to feature in Bloodlines, and in my humble opinion, it's the best one. The hub is a fantastic introduction to the world that Bloodlines is trying to create. On top of its excellent world building, it is well designed from a level design and environment art perspective. It also happens to contain some of the most iconic and best quest lines that Bloodlines has to offer. For me, Bloodlines is at its best during the Santa Monica and downtown areas, but I'll get into why that is a little later. Santa Monica really sets the mood and tone for the rest of the game. It's incredibly unsavory, run down and gloomy, feeling like a shadow of its former self. It's decayed and about as alive as you are, the type of place you normally wouldn't want to wander alone in at night, and yet, for a vampire, it's another story. You have nothing to fear here, young fledgling. As kindred, these are your streets. Simply put, this is the type of area that you excel in. It's your bread and butter, providing you with the tasks, cover, and most importantly, the sweet blood you need to survive. So the area has seen better days, and your apartment is real crappy. Who cares? You don't need any comforts. You're dead. So long as you have some plywood to block out the sun and some berry bloody shampoo, you are golden, my friend. Bloodlines is particularly good at creating atmosphere. Throughout Santa Monica and all the other hubs, you get a real sense of just how grimy, cold, and sleazy the LA nightlife is, all reinforced thanks to the great lighting and texturing of each area, alongside the choice of assets, decals, and characters used to populate them. Due to the limitations of the time, as well as Bloodlines' troubled development, it's admirable that the game does so much with so little. To this day, I am still impressed by the amount of personality your first haven has in Santa Monica. It only has a few assets, and next to none of them are exclusive to it. What's specifically unique to Bloodlines' overall ambience, however, is the ever-present feeling of lurking horror. It's excellently introduced to players for the game's very first hub. Perhaps it's unsurprising that there's an undertone of horror to everything in this game. An undertone which is ever present. The way areas are lit and textured, as well as the architectural elements used, are often influenced by horror tropes and iconography. Simply put, there's a heavy use of shadows, frequent use of the colours red and green, and it's the reason why some architectural styles and elements were used and favoured by the devs, even if said styles and elements aren't as commonplace in their actual LA counterparts. There's a lot of Gothic revival and Victorian-influenced buildings throughout the game, styles that are heavily associated with both horror and vampires. This is pre-established and works like a shorthand to players. You want a world to seem like its strings are being pulled from behind the scenes by vampires? Add a ton of spires. Just check out Ventry Tower if you don't believe me. Using styles and architectural features associated with horror is just a very effective and convenient way of world building visually. If you just look at the properties that are associated with vampires in Santa Monica alone, the Asylum and Santa Monica Suites, you start to see it. Incidentally, using more stereotypical depictions of horror architecture is likely the reason why the Ocean House's exterior is drastically different from its concept art. Initially, the building was based on LA's Chateau de Marmont, a famous hotel that is not only more appropriate to LA style-wise, but is also said to be haunted. However, this building was probably just too unfamiliar to most players. Or, it was too costly to make for its limited use. Who knows? The point is, the hotel was changed at some point during development to be Second Empire in style. I imagine this happened because it reads better and is more universally associated with ghosts. Seriously, this style of architecture is like the poster child for haunted houses everywhere. And clearly, it was the right choice because the Ocean House makes one hell of an impact the moment the player sees it. The horror aspects of this game are also smartly used throughout, toned down or played comedically most of the time while still being able to be played straight in sections intended to be more horrific and genuinely scary. Often, elements are treated jokingly in ways ranging from satirical tongue-in-cheek to dark humour. Like, of course the energy drinks would be called Demon Seed, the LA Sun would be your newspaper, and you can pick up and use the severed arm. Without a jokey self-awareness, especially when it comes to the darker bits of the game's world, this game would be a considerably less fun edgefest. At the same time though, there's a constant creeping horror that allows the game to ramp up and treat seriously the few sections that need to be in a way that doesn't feel out of place. The Ocean House is infamous because of this. This is an incredible balance that Bloodlines manages to achieve. You can feel like a boss-ass vampire one moment, only to be running terrified the next. Horror is always just a few steps away, lurking just out of your sight. And strangely, after a while you not only get accustomed to the dread, but you start to find it almost comforting. Santa Monica really encapsulates that feeling for me. The addition of various visual effects like rain, lightning, fog, and waves helps to further create this cozy and intimate feeling that still manages to retain a level of eeriness. Praise should be given to the contributors of the fan patches that lovingly enhanced and remade these visual effects. Those effects really help give Santa Monica its distinct atmosphere. Rick Schaefer's Santa Monica theme also can't be praised and appreciated enough for the heavy lifting it does in contributing to the hub's overall ambiance. There's a particular place in my heart for the feeling I get wandering the rainy streets while listening to it. It is just perfection. The intimate and cozy nature of Santa Monica is also a byproduct of its layout. As a hub, it's the most enjoyable to explore. This is because it's more interestingly laid out with multiple routes to walk. It has a smaller overall map size and a denser overall feeling when compared to the other hubs. Most of the buildings in Santa Monica are directly related to a quest or a side quest. The benefit of this is that the hub's interconnected nature helps to make it feel richer and more substantial. There aren't as many buildings that are purely facades and only a small amount of unused space. Buildings that are purely facades can be effective when it comes to creating a sense of overall scale, because not every building needs to be accessible. But if it's used too much, it can make an area feel empty and lifeless. Downtown, the biggest hub in the game, uses them well. As a hub, it's purposely more spread out and uses a higher number of buildings that are purely facades. Naturally, you spend more time traversing the map, but you have more pathways at your disposal. It also uses verticality to reinforce the idea of it being larger in both scope and scale. It's an intentional contrast. Hollywood, the smallest hub in the game, is for me the most boring, due entirely to its layout. You're pretty much limited to walking back and forth in a straight line between the various missions, which can get a little tedious, especially as this is when the quality of the game starts to dip. And the final hub, Chinatown, is probably the closest in size and layout to Santa Monica, but you spend so little time there that you don't really develop much of a fondness for it. And that's really one of the major differences. Santa Monica ends up being one of the most widely returned to hubs of the game, due in part to your haven being there until you get one of the downtown ones. There's also numerous side quests that occur there, so even in the late stages of the game, you're still returning to that area. Having 4 hubs that are based on drastically different areas of LA allows for them to have a level of uniformity whilst also retaining an independentness, a uniqueness to their design and theming. It just stops them from all merging together, and also, it just shows the diversity of the city. In-game recreations of iconic LA landmarks like Santa Monica's Pier also breathes a sense of life into the game's world, making it more tangible and familiar to us. This kind of thing just helps with overall world building. Santa Monica is just like the other hubs in this game, a character in its own right. However, unlike the later hubs, it had enough time dedicated to it to become well-rounded and fleshed out. Arguably, it wouldn't be nearly as beloved if it didn't have some of the most memorable quests and personalities of the game. To me, it's Bloodlines condensed. It has some of the best the game has to offer. It's no surprise, given the game's treble production, that the front end of the game is where Bloodlines excels, and the final third is where the game falters. Bloodlines becomes considerably less enjoyable the further you progress, with key design fillers of the game and gameplay becoming ignored in favour of combat and stealth sections because, well, Troika Games just had to ship it. Santa Monica and Bloodlines itself are unique experiences even to this day. They're the sum of all their parts, created by incredibly talented and ambitious individuals from all disciplines of game development, and painstakingly improved upon by a community that adores them, warts and all. It leaves a real impression on you before you even get into the meat of what this game has to offer as an RPG or immersive sim, whatever genre you want to call it. Dynamic and memorable quests, fantastic world building for the time, excellent characterizations.
Oh, you have such beautiful arms. I absolutely must have them.
Music that's influence cannot be understated, and some of the best dialogue and flavor text around. These are aspects that Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is still praised for to this day. It's its lasting legacy, and it's just a damn shame that its true potential could not be realized or recognized at the time in 2004. Troika Games, the studio behind Bloodlines, really deserve better in retrospect. In 2019, close to 15 years after VtMB's release, Bloodlines 2 was formally announced by Paradox Interactive. It's currently being worked on by Hardsuit Labs, by a team that adores the original just as much as the community does. It seems like a real passion project for many of the individuals working on it, and I wish them all the best. Hopefully, Bloodlines 2 and its hubs will not only be able to live up to the heights of its predecessor, but will be able to live up to the original's true potential. And with any luck, I will fall just as much in love with it. Though Seattle certainly has big shoes to fill. If you're interested in playing Bloodlines and haven't already, I suggest picking it up from GOG as it already comes with the 9.7 unofficial fan patch. Never play this game unpatched. It's a real bad time. I've kept spoilers to a minimum so you can enjoy the game fairly fresh-faced. Enjoy, fledglings, and remember, don't open it.